How do you preach the gospel to yourself? How do you preach the gospel to yourself? I've talked about this a lot, and I fear it's probably still somewhat confusing, still somewhat of an abstract idea. Even though we've talked about it quite a bit, it's a grand ideal. It sounds right, but how do we really do this? How do we let the gospel define who we are, what we believe, how we desire, what we think, who we are? How do we do it? Really, if we think about it, preaching the gospel to yourself is just a new hip way of saying, be renewed in your mind. Paul talked about it in Ephesians 4 and Romans 12. Really what that phrase does is it tells you the exact instrument by which you renew your mind. See, we can train our mind with lots of things. We can train our mind with evil thoughts. We can train our mind to be more perverse and more deadly. We can train our mind with happy thoughts. We can think about unicorns and rainbows and pretend this world really isn't as bad as it really is. We can train our mind with a law. And that will only end with self-righteousness or despair. Now, only one thing truly renews our minds. It's the gospel of Jesus Christ. Only one thing truly lets us think God's thoughts after Him properly and correctly. It's the gospel that declares we're sinners and God loves us anyway, and He died for us, and He rose again and gives us hope. Only one thing renews our minds, and we're supposed to have our minds renewed by the gospel so we think God's thoughts after Him. We're supposed to be thinking God's thoughts after Him so that those thoughts then change our desires, and then we begin to desire like God. Our desires are changed, and we love Him more than the things of this world. If we're not doing this, we'll only be taken away by our sin and our self-righteousness.